All right, now for the Twins Winter Caravan portion of the evening, T.C. Bear is here. One other man who's here tonight is Jake Maurer, and we don't know who the Colonel's players are going to be this year. We certainly hope we have a team like we did last year, but one man we know is going to be back is Jake Maurer, his second season. Can't wait to get started with Jake back at the helm. Right after the All-Star break last season, we had a lot of our team promoted. Byron Buxton was promoted right after the All-Star break, and then also key guys like Dalton Hicks and J.D. Williams and Tyler Jones, Steve Groover on the pitching staff were promoted pretty quickly, and had a lot of new faces step in those months of July and August to help us keep the momentum going into the playoffs. We still managed to keep winning. In fact, we had more wins in the second half than we did in the first half. And I think Jake would probably agree with me in saying that's probably the most impressive part of the season, the fact that we held it together or they held it together, not me, but they held it together through those July and August months and really propelled us into the playoffs. Ended a little quicker than we hoped to, but ran into a really good Quad Cities team, and they just kind of had our number all season long, and they were a quality opponent. They went on and ran through the rest of the playoffs and won it all. So, but I know Jake's excited to get back, a little unfinished business, but so many great stories last season, like in the second half, with Jonathan Murphy, Joel Lycon really stepped up into starting roles. Brett Lee, who's actually here tonight, was a big part of that pitching staff, especially in the second half. But I think Jake deserves a lot of credit for that as well, and keeping things together when we had those promotions. So without further ado, let's bring up our first guy who works for the Twins, Jake Maurer.
Hello, everyone. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces tonight. Thanks for coming out. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Booster Club and our host family program. You folks were outstanding last year and really made our boys feel comfortable throughout the year, and the support that you gave us, whether we were doing well or not doing so well, really meant a lot to us as a staff and also to our players. 2013 was a lot of fun. We had a lot of quality players come through. Believe me, it wasn't anything that I did. We had a lot of talented kids and good quality people, not only on the field but off the field. And the way they conducted themselves in the community and on the field, again, we were very proud of what they accomplished. We were a little disappointed in the playoffs, unfortunately. Like Morgan mentioned, we ran into a pretty hot team in Quad Cities, and we battled them, and they ended up winning the whole league. But 2014, new season, more than likely probably a lot of new faces. I know Tommy Watkins will be back with me as a hitting coach, and yep, we'll be excited to have Tommy. The new and improved Tommy. He told me he lost 20 pounds, so I think he's trying to make a comeback. I don't know, maybe he's just trying to make me look bad, one of the two. But Yvonne Artiago will be our pitching coach this year. Gary Lucas will move on to Fort Myers. We'll miss Gary, but Yvonne I had the pleasure of working with in the Gulf Coast League, and he did an outstanding job and will be a really good addition. Also, too, our new trainer, Curtis Simonich, will be with us. Ryan has moved on. He's taken a job at a hospital in the Twin Cities, so we'll miss Ryan, but again, we're also happy to have Curtis with us and looking forward to a great year. To be honest, I really don't know what to expect as far as the boys that we're going to head north with from spring training. If we get a lot of the Elizabethan players from last year, it looked like their pitching staff was pretty strong. So hopefully we can expect that up here. But I can promise you one thing, the boys that do come up, you can expect them to play hard. And whether we win or lose, they're going to win with class, and we're going to lose with class, and they're going to be good people. You'll see us in the community. You'll see us at the park, and that's really what we're all about. But I want to say thank you again to everybody coming out tonight. It's great to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm very excited to be back. I don't know if I'm in the same boat as everybody here, but I'm sick of winter. this is just ridiculous. So I'm ready to get started, get out green grass and play some ball. So thank you again. Have a great night.
We'll keep Jake up here, and want to mention when we get into the Twins Winter Caravan part, we're going to have a part where there are some questions from the audience. We've set up 2 microphones in the back of the room, so feel free to when we get to that portion, you can use those. But I'm going to get out of the way. Jake's going to stay up here. I'm going to bring up Dick Bramer, Twins broadcaster of Fox Sports North, and he's going to take over with the Twins Winter Caravan tonight. Thank you.
Thank you again, Morgan. Good to be back in Cedar Rapids again. I noticed Jake this year came here by himself. Last year he had his family along, and he intimated to me earlier that they're just weeks away from expecting their 3rd child. So we hope all goes well here between now and opening day. Which brings to mind a little story about the Maurer family. Now, you, I'm sure, learned a lot about Jake last year in his first year here. Great family, but within that, a great baseball family. 3 boys, all of them really good baseball players. Jake's the oldest. Then Bill is the middle brother. He's a successful car dealer in the Twin Cities. And then, of course, Joe, who's going to be the Twins' new first baseman. We'll talk about that a little later on. But at about the time when the Maurer family was expecting their 3rd child, Jake was, what year, how older? 4 years older than Joe is. But of course, back then, you didn't know anything about, the sex of the baby or anything like that. One of Jake's uncles went up to him at about this time and said, well, Jake, are you excited? You're going to have another baby in the family. And Jake said, yeah, I really, really am excited. And the uncle said, well, do you want a baby boy, a baby brother, or a baby sister? And ever the politician, Jake said, well, I don't care as long as the baby is healthy. And then the uncle asked Jake, well, what are your parents going to name the baby? And Jake said, well, I just heard them talking about it the other night. If it's a girl, they're going to name it Catherine. And if it's another boy like me, they're going to call it Quits. We're very happy to have Jake back here in Cedar Rapids. We're very happy to be on the first day of our Winter Caravan leg here. We started today in the Twin Cities, went to Iowa Falls. We're here. We're going to work our way through Iowa, over into South Dakota, back up through southern Minnesota. There's another leg that's going into northern Minnesota this week. We try to cover as much territory as we can, and we know that we're among friends here in Cedar Rapids. We've got a lot of great support from the Cedar Rapids area, and as this partnership between the Cedar Rapids Baseball Club and the Twins continues to grow, we're looking forward to seeing a lot of you up at Target Field to watch Byron Buxton and some other of the Twins players who were here last year playing for the big league club, we hope very, very soon. We've got an interesting 2014 ahead of us. As I'm sure you're aware, the Twins addressed their biggest need, starting pitching, signed some new players. There's no question that the last 3 years were very frustrating for the Twins organization and the fans that reach down here to Cedar Rapids in eastern Iowa as well. I prefer to think of it, though, as just one really long year rather than 3 ones successively. And you have to think back before the bad stretch. The Twins won 94 ball games. We're in the playoffs, and we're hoping to get back there again very soon. Opening day for the Twins is actually just, in terms of the calendar pages turning, just 2 turns away. We open up on March 31st in Chicago. Jake said he's tired of winter. We might have a little winter waiting for us in Chicago on March 31st. But we're looking forward to a great season and a much better year. And we have some reasons for our encouragement and hope for improvement with us here tonight. Not to be forgotten by any means, the best mascot in Major League Baseball, TC, is with us here. And we'll bring up three members of the uniformed staff that will be helpful in turning this season around for the Twins, or the fortunes around. And we'll start with two relief pitchers. I'm sure many of you here, if not most of you, know what the Rule 5 draft is. The Twins participated in the Rule 5 draft. They got a very talented young pitcher out of the Boston Red Sox organization. But truth be told, he made the team on merit. The Rule 5 requires that that player stay with the big league club, but he pitched well enough to stay with the big league club all year long. How about a nice Cedar Rapids welcome for Ryan Presley? And a Twins veteran, a Winter Caravan veteran. This is, I think he said, his fourth year on Twins Caravan. I was tickled that I found out that he was going to be on my leg again this year. Does a great job representing the Twins organization on the field, off the field. Another member of the Twins Relief Corps that was very good last year. Let's bring up left-hander Brian Dunsig. Baseball in 2014 allowed the Twins and every other major league club to add a coach. So the Twins went to the expected source to try to fill out their coaching staff with a guy who'd been involved with the Twins organization for many years. His playing career actually ended with the Minnesota Twins. He's been involved with the organization, spent a lot of time with the players in spring training, spent some time here in Cedar Rapids, I know, a week or so, I believe. He's a Hall of Fame player, and he's the new coach for the Minnesota Twins. Let's bring up Paul Molitor. Paul? Wherever you'd like. We'll ask these three people who are traveling with us a few questions, and then, as Morgan said, there are microphones in the back. If you'd like to ask some questions, we'll try to field as many as we can. And we have microphones right here at the table. I'm wondering, Ryan, we'll start with you. Why don't you stand up, just in case people in the back might have a hard time seeing you sitting down. And we'll hear from Ryan Presley. Now, the Rule 5 draft abruptly took you out of the Boston organization and brought you to the Twins organization. When that happened, what were your first thoughts? Had you ever been to Minnesota before?
I have definitely not been. No, I have not been to Minnesota, and it was freezing when I first got up there. I'm from the South. I'm in Texas, so I don't do cold really well.
Let's talk about your Rule 5 year. You, for most of your time with the Red Sox organization, you were a starting pitcher, and then your last year with them, you became a reliever. The results were a little bit better, and then, of course, you pitched out of the bullpen last year. What did you learn last year about what it will take to succeed up here during your Rule 5 year last year?
Well, I got moved to the bullpen. Last year was my first full year. I'd like to know when I was starting and the days that I was pitching, but as a reliever, you kind of have to go with the flow, and you pick up on some things. Like Deuce kind of paved the way for me, just picking up on the routines and just little things every now and then, and that's how I kind of picked stuff up.
We talked about the Twins' struggles in the pitching department. They were principally on the starting side. The bullpen not only was pretty good, but a lot of veterans there. You've got guys like Glenn Perkins and Jared Burton. Brian's been around for a long time. What were you able to pick up from those veterans about how to conduct yourself? I talked earlier about how Ron Gonder meant a lot to me about how to conduct myself professionally. What did you learn last year?
Really just kind of, keeping track of the game. You can kind of get bored just sitting down in the bullpen, but when the game kind of drags on, you kind of figure out who's coming up, what hitters, what were their weaknesses, what are your strengths going to be against them. If we got to get ready in a hurry, what's it going to take, how many throws. It was just kind of those little things right there can mean a lot.
We talked about this on the bus on the way here. You were drafted out of the Red Sox organization. You become a member of the Minnesota Twins, and then your Red Sox go on to win the World Series. What was that like, sitting at home, watching some guys you were in the minor leagues with win the World Series?
Oh, man. I mean, I was happy for some of the guys that were up there, but at the same time, my roommate was just sitting right back there with me. He made it into the big league, so he gets a ring. And I asked him, I was like, "Are you going to wear that ring?" He just goes, "Absolutely not." I mean, I was not part of that, but you know, I'm happy for him. But you know, it was really cool seeing some of the guys win that ring.
How about this? You helped the Twins win their next World Series.
I like it.
All right. How about a nice hand for Ryan Presley? We mentioned Ryan principally was a starting pitcher. The Red Sox moved him to the bullpen a couple years ago. The Twins had him pitch out of the bullpen. Our next guest is somebody who's gone, let's see if this is right, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth from the starting rotation to the bullpen. Is that about right?
That sounds right, yeah.
How about a nice Cedar Rapids welcome for Brian Dunsing? Is there a preference? What would you rather do? You've had success and experience doing both, pitching out of the bullpen and out of the rotation.
You know, I enjoy knowing when I'm going to pitch. As Presley said, as a starter, you have your set routine. You know who you're going to face, when you're going to face them. And as a reliever, you have to show up to the ballpark every day kind of on edge, where you don't know if you're going to pitch that day, if you're going to pitch 3 days in a row, you're going to have 4 days off. It's very grueling, and I've actually found my first couple gray hairs this off season, which I'm sure is from the bullpen. And but I've had a lot of fun. Yeah, they're right there. I've had a lot of fun. I've learned how to be a reliever. I've learned the process. So I've had, like you said, I've had success there. But whatever it takes for us to win and get back to the playoffs is where I'd like to be.
Ryan is from Texas. You said he was from down south. He's from Texas. You're from Omaha, Nebraska, and went to the University of Nebraska. You would prefer, I'm sure, to play baseball in 70-degree weather, but even in high school and college, you had more than your share of cold weather baseball, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I remember having, well, I had Tommy John surgery in '04, which was my junior year of college, but my sophomore year, when I tore it, we had a 3-game series against the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, which got snowed out on Friday. We spent all day Friday evening scooping snow, and I started game 2 on Saturday at 3 o'clock. The game time temperature was 28 degrees, and I got to the second inning before I blew out. So the cold weather scares me a little bit, to be safe, but you know, it's part of it. It's part of spring baseball, the weather. So you get used to it.
You mentioned you want to get the Twins back into the playoffs, and maybe you're the ideal guy to ask this. The Twins were used to winning division championships, and you were a big part of that going back just a few years ago. And then, of course, the 3 bad years in a row. What do you think it's going to take to get this organization back where they were when your major league career started?
I think the obvious, the obvious answer is consistency from everybody, from pitchers to position players. But I think it's also going to take a little bit of knowledge, especially from some of the younger guys, of what type of player each of us are, and what we can bring to the field and to the table, and try not overdo things. I think in 2011, I think the starters, we kind of tried to do too much, and the things went downhill. And I think you know, the last couple of years, I feel like some people press, and we start pressing when you lose, and you start feeling the pressure, and you try and do too much. And when you try and do too much, you don't do things correctly. So if we can stay consistent and stay within ourselves, we're going to see a little bit of a turnaround.
One of the best left-handed relievers in the American League. We're very happy to have Brian Dunsing with us. Brian? Our next guest, we mentioned, spent a lot of time here, and his job was not just here, but throughout the minor league system to be a mentor to some of the prospects the Twins have high hopes for, and you've obviously had several of them here, and most notably Byron Buxton. So with that, we're very happy to welcome back to Cedar Rapids Hall of Famer Paul Molitor. Paul?
Thanks, Dick. Good to be back.
I'm sure you've been asked this question a number of times already. People, I mean, the Colonels inducted Mike Trout into their Hall of Fame, and
Right.
there were comparisons made last year that maybe Byron Buxton is the best player that Cedar Rapids has seen since Mike Trout. What's it going to take for Byron Buxton to get to the big leagues and be an impact player?
Well, first of all, I just want to welcome everybody tonight on behalf of the Twins, and it was great seeing the Colonel inductions into the Hall of Fame. Grandma Nance, I want to tell you, I knew some people that served people in the minor leagues when I played in Burlington, and I never forgot about them. So what you've done for people along the way is amazing. So I wanted to congratulate you on that. I had the privilege of coming down here last summer and working with Mr. Buxton for about a week, and that was also the week that they televised the game back to the Twin Cities. And the guy knows what to do when the lights come on, because he had probably one of the best games of his half season here in Cedar Rapids. A couple outstanding catches. I think he was one hit short of the cycle. And you know, when I see what Mike Trout did and has transitioned so rapidly into the major leagues, I don't know what will hold Buxton back. He's on that same track. Now, we all know he's 20 years old, and there's a lot to learn, and each step provides its own challenges. But in addition to tremendous ability, he's just such a quality young man who doesn't need to be repeated more than once. When you tell him something, he tries to apply it. He comes to the park early, he stays late, he understands what it means to be a professional. So he's the type of young player that makes coaching fun. So I don't want to go too far out on a limb, but it wouldn't surprise me if he finds his way to Target Field sometime before the end of the season.
Wow. You mentioned your time in Burlington, Class A baseball, and then you went to the Brewers. In that sense, you might be the worst guy to ask this question, but in another sense, you might be the best guy to ask the question, how important is the gradual step through the minor leagues to the development of a player, or if you can you play anywhere?
Well, it's changed a little bit. I played in the old park in Cedar Rapids a long, long time ago when I was in the Midwest League, and I did go to the big leagues the next year. But, you know, it just happened where everything fell right for me. You know, you talk to different people in player development, and some will say, well, low A to high A is the toughest jump, or some will say A ball to double A to triple A. They're all tough because every step the pyramid gets smaller. But every once in a while you get that rare guy that can maybe jump a level or two at a time, and when he gets the opportunity, he puts his foot in the door and he wedges it in and he never turns back. So there's always the risk of pushing somebody too quickly, and if they fail, then you might have to worry about recovery. And Aaron Hicks last year went from double A to the big leagues, and he found it tough. And I think he has a type of makeup to rebound from that and come back and make contributions this year, but you got to be careful where that line is. But like I said, you know, Byron's one of those guys I think can handle it.
Mentioned you finished your career with the Twins, eventually went to Cooperstown as a member of the Baseball Hall of Fame, and we talked about this earlier. Dave Winfield didn't finish his career with the Twins, another St. Paul native, but he played a couple years for the Twins. Jack Morris with one glorious year in the Twins organization, and we had just naturally assumed Joe Mauer will be playing only for the Twins in his major league career. But how much did it mean to you to be able to put on that Twins uniform when you grew up in the Twin Cities following the ball club?
Well, you know, when you dream about being a major league player, you don't really think about playing 21 years. It just kind of happened. And a step further, you don't think that you're going to get a chance to play for the team that you followed as a kid in your 19th year. When I came back to Minnesota, it was the year that I was turning 40, so it wasn't the ideal conditions. But, you know, for any young player, I see some young kids out here tonight, they aspire to fulfill their dreams of becoming major league players. That dream usually includes playing for the team that you follow as a youngster. And so for me to come back to Minnesota at the tail end of my career and getting a chance to play for my hometown team, to play for a manager like Tom Kelly, were all, you know, things that I really, really was looking forward to. The last part of that was Kirby Puckett was one of those guys that when I played against him, I said, man, I would really like to play with that guy someday. But unfortunately, the year I came back was the year that Kirby was struck with the glaucoma. But yeah, coming back home, you can't beat that. To finish my career, kind of coming full circle, if you will, and finishing out my career as a member of the Twins and now still remaining in the organization, it couldn't have worked out any better.
We'll ask Paul one more question, but we do want to ask for those of you who have a question, we've got, I believe, 2 microphones back there, and if we have enough people to make 2 lines, we'll do that. If there's just one back there, we'll ask you to go to the microphone so we can go ahead and keep things moving along here. But Paul, your role with the Twins expanded when you agreed to become the extra coach for the Twins. What went into that thought process? You were involved with the Twins in spring training and beyond, but now it's more of a full-time commitment.
Well, you know, first thing, you know, when Terry Ryan calls you and Ron Gardenhire calls you and said that, hey, we're expanding our staff and we'd like you to consider joining the staff. I mean, that makes you feel pretty good. I follow the team closely at the major league level, even though I've been concentrating on the player development side with guys like Jake. It's a great opportunity for me, and the biggest question for me is to change the rhythm, family, young kids, how it's going to play into things as opposed to being a minor league roving instructor. But as far as the job itself, I couldn't be more excited about that. I'm one of those believers in baseball that I don't care where we've been. It's been a rough one long year, as Dick said. I think we can win now. And maybe I'm crazy to think that, but a lot of it starts with how you start to, you know, establish a mindset. Cleveland Indians last year, the most recent example of a team that improved by 25 games over the course of one season. I like what Terry's done with the team. I like our young players. I like who's coming after our young players. I think that things are going to start turning around very, very rapidly, and I'm excited they want me to be a part of that.
All right, very nice. And now the best part of the program for us, at least for me, the opportunity for you to ask questions. So if you have a question, again, the microphones are in the back of the room. At least one that I can see. I believe there are 2 of them back there. But if you have a question, step up to the mic and fire away. We went through this in Iowa Falls. The guys up here are willing to talk about anything, right?
Sure, Dick.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much for coming down here, guys. Really appreciate it. I guess first thing is our 2 relievers there, Brian and Ryan. Thanks so much for, well, frankly, being the good part of the ball club last year. That was something that was actually, we knew that at least in a 9-inning game, at least a few innings of the game, we could look forward to, and hopefully keep it up this year. That's certainly with the addition of some starting pitching. That hopefully we can shore up that side of it. That, having said that, it segue into my primary question. We've made the acquisitions on the pitching staff. I guess my just a general question would be to Paul or to Dick or all you guys. What moves are we going to make, or in general, or are we done as far as any big moves, or are we still looking to make some moves to get some more offense?
Sounds like a great question for a coach.
Oh, me. I wasn't sure where that was going at first.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah, sorry about that.
Then,
I mean,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know Terry's still out there, you know, looking at the free agent list. Some of the better hitters remaining, Morales and guy from Texas. I know Morales has a draft choice attached to him, and they're really not very good fits for our club. I think, you know, if there's any potential trades out there, Terry's very protective of the players in our minor league system, is not going to give up some of our top guys to improve our offense. You know, last year was a rough year offensively. We struck out too much. We didn't hit the ball over the fence enough. Base running wasn't very good. There's a lot of room for improvement, but it doesn't mean that the guys that are coming back won't have a chance to improve in those areas, either through experience, through you know, whatever it takes for them to get better. It's going to be a little bit different look, especially with Joe going to first. But we have to find a way to score more runs. That's the bottom line. And hopefully we'll start instilling some of that and what it takes to get that done in spring training.
Next question.
This question's for Paul. First of all, I appreciate all the job that you guys are doing in the organization. Paul, being an old school guy myself, I wanted to know who was the toughest left-handed pitcher that you've ever faced and the toughest right-handed pitcher that you ever faced in your career?
The toughest pitchers I've ever faced, it kind of changed decade to decade, but, the easy choice and probably the similar for a lot of players. When I faced Nolan Ryan when I first got to the big leagues, I never saw anybody throw like that in the minor leagues and college. It was like unbelievable, and when he threw that curveball with it. Plus, he just as soon, I think, hit you as strike you out, which I made the mistake of trying to bunt on him as a rookie. I paid the price the next at bat. But Randy Johnson was probably the toughest left-hander I ever faced. Between his wingspan being about 12 feet and 6'10", and his release point felt like it was right on top of you. And he had two way above average pitches. When I was young, I tried to hit his fastball. When I was old, I tried to hit his slider. But those two guys stick out for me.
I realize now why I couldn't see the other microphone. It's right under the lights over there, but we do have a microphone and somebody with a question there.
Question for Brian. August 9th, 2013. How great a day was that for you?
Great.
At night.
What was that?
Night doubleheader.
Oh, that was fun. Oh, yeah, doubleheader in Chicago. That was a great time, actually. Yeah, 2 wins in the same day. Kind of fell into place. Right spot, right time, and next thing you know, you got 2 wins. I didn't know the history behind, I guess, the record, I guess you could say, but yeah, it was exciting. I kept the balls, I guess, more than one, and it was fun. Obviously a memorable night. I remembered what you were talking about, but no, that was great. That was a lot of fun.
I believe, as I recall, the only pitcher in franchise history to do that was Walter Johnson, I believe.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep, okay.
You're
Back
the
over
answer
here.
to my newest trivia question.
Back over here.
This is Jake. Although you're in the minor leagues, but more towards the major leagues. But we've been waiting for some pitching for a while. It seems like with the Twins organization, and finally we got some power pitchers, some young power pitchers that are coming up, and hopefully on the horizon of getting there. And it seems like this year maybe we got some innings eaters to fill in some innings for us throughout this season. Do you think that those innings eaters will block our young pitchers from getting to the majors, or will the fact that, if they're good enough, they'll just get there?
Excuse me. Well, I think not having or having too much pitching is a pretty good problem to have, and I think I speak for everybody. Think we would definitely love to have that problem. Last year we drafted Cole Stewart, fairly high, young man out of Texas, high school pitcher who's got a pretty good arm. And we drafted another young man, a left-hander out of California. Both have pretty good arms. But really what happens, Brett Lee's a prime example, and Brett's here tonight. Pitchers have to get outs. And whether it's a power pitcher or a control guy, they still have to make a pitch. It's nice to get a strikeout in big situations. There's no doubt about that. But the cream always kind of rises to the top. Sometimes it's not a guy that you expect. A lot of the times, and that's always a nice surprise, but it's always good to go into spring training with a competition. If pitching's one of those competitions, that just makes the ball club a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to bring a question up to Ryan and to Brian. Our bullpen has been so taxed over the last few years, and we've had a lot of arms out there. Like Jake said, getting outs. Brian, I know you've served as a long reliever before. That's one of those positions where you're, thrown out in the middle innings, just trying to get outs and keep the game somewhat within reach. Along with Swarzy, with Anthony Swarzak, would you guys, take the opportunity to be the long reliever, or where do you guys see yourselves in the bullpen?
You know, I'm glad you brought up Anthony Swarzak. I feel like he kind of got overlooked a little bit last year. He probably was kind of the unsung hero for all of us in the bullpen. He had, 98 innings, under a 3 ERA. And as a long guy, when you're throwing 98 innings in a season, that kind of tells you something, isn't necessarily clicking. And, I mean, like I said earlier, if myself being the long relief guy or Ryan being the long relief guy is what's going to take for us to get to the playoffs, and by all means, hand me the ball. I'll go as long as I can for you every night if I have to. But it's a tough job. It's something that gets overlooked because by that point, usually the game might be out of hand for the most part, and it kind of gets overlooked.
I have questions. What would we do for a younger person who in junior high or high school? What do we suggest for people who just want to play baseball? And I'd like to hear what you have on younger person, like 5 or up, because people get burned out of baseball.
Well, Paul, let's ask you that because you came through and you played some other sports as well, but the question is, for young kids, what would you suggest to allow them to develop as a baseball player without burning themselves out?
Well, just briefly, I'm opposed to the trend of young athletes gravitating to one sport year-round. I understand that some individual sports, whether it's gymnastics, figure skating, some of the ones where they peak at about 16, but they're getting a lot of pressure from coaches. Basketball, hockey, baseball, you got to play year-round, otherwise you might not make the team, and this and that. Part of growing up is playing a lot of different things, exposing yourself and trying to enjoy yourself, as you grow up. But just to enjoy the experience, respect the instruction and the instructor, and whenever you stop participating in sports, I would think a good thing to do would be able to walk away and say, I don't have to say if I only would have done this. If you're going to do it, commit to it, have some fun, and let it take you where it might take you.
We're trying to get 2 more in, starting over here under the light.
I had a question about replay coming up this year with the expanded replay, maybe from coaching or broadcasting or pitching. How do you see this season being different?
You're my go-to guy. You take all the tough ones.
I don't like it. I had trouble with the home run originally. I understand why they want to do it because football is leading the way and we have the technology. I've already gotten an email from Tara Ryan about this extensive list of what you can contend against and what you can't, and now they're going to start trying to position base runners on fair balls that were called foul, and you get one. You can throw the flag once before the 6th inning and twice after the 7th inning, and I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but I don't like it. So that's where I'm at.
And one more over here.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, there we go. This question's for Jake. With you being brother to Joe, you've grown up with him for a long time. You probably know his swing better than anybody else. What kind of year should we expect with him moving from the dish to first base? Is he going to kind of get back to that MVP type status, or what do you think?
I hope so. He's a lot easier to deal with when he's on the field. I'll tell you that. He's kind of an ornery guy when he's not playing. I think the move to first base, I think, will be a very good one for him. I know the concussion that he had last year, plain and simple, scared him. And not knowing, if you hurt a knee or an elbow, there's set parameters. You do this, and you're usually better. And with concussions, there's not a lot known about it. There's not a lot known as far as recovery and things to improve. So I know early he was, I want to say, very enthused to play first base. I think he still feels he's a catcher. I think he still feels like he can be a very good catcher, but I think he understands what could happen if he gets dinged in the noggin again. You know, it's probably my fault from beating on him when he was a little kid, but he understands that this move's going to be not only better for his health, but also I think for the ball club. I think you can expect him, you know, to get 5, almost 600 at-bats. And Joe's always seemed to be the guy that if he's able to stay on the field, the numbers kind of take care of himself. And I know the way that he's preparing this winter is that he's preparing to play, you know, 160, 162 games. So I think it'll be good for him. I think he'll, not to say he doesn't like first base, but I think he's going to fall in love with it in August and September when his body feels pretty good and the bat speed and everything's still there. So I know he's looking forward to getting back on the field and getting back out there with these guys and hopefully making something good happen.
All right, good questions. And with that, I think we're going to excuse the people here at the head table to go down to the autograph table down there.